I never thought I'd be standing here watching my daughter-in-law stumble through what should have been a simple client meeting. My name is Eleanor Whitmore, Ella to those who dare call me by my first name, and for nearly 3 decades, I've built Whitmore & Company into one of New York's most prestigious luxury fashion houses. Every stitch, every seam, every silk scarf that leaves our flagship store on Fifth Avenue bears my name, my legacy. But now it feels like everything I've worked for is teetering on the edge of collapse. Not because of market trends or competitors but because of her, Sophia Loren. Sophia walked into my life when she married my son Daniel. She's young, ambitious, and charming in a way that makes people want to root for her. First I saw potential. Maybe too much potential. I imagined grooming her to take over the business someday, especially since Daniel has zero interest in stepping into my shoes. He's an artist, always chasing some abstract dream with paintbrushes and canvases. Sophia had fire in her eyes when she talked about fashion. Or so I thought. The truth hit me hard during her first week at the office. She mixed up chiffon and charmeuse during a fabric presentation, mispronounced the name of our biggest client, Madame Leclerc, not Leclerc, and somehow managed to spill coffee on a prototype gown worth more than her monthly rent. Still, I told myself it was nerves. Everyone starts somewhere, right? Wrong. What came next wasn't nerves. It was incompetence. And I couldn't afford incompetence. Not in this industry. Not with Nathaniel Price circling like a vulture, waiting for any sign of weakness. You'd think after all these years I'd know better than to let emotions cloud my judgment. But there I was, sitting across from Sophia in my corner office, trying to explain why couture isn't just fancy clothes, but an art form. Her wide-eyed enthusiasm almost convinced me she could rise to the occasion. Almost. Eleanor, she said, leaning forward with that earnest smile of hers, I promise you won't regret trusting me. I'll make you proud. Proud. The word stuck in my throat like a fishbone. Proud of what? Of how she stumbled over basic terminology during her first staff meeting. Of how she accidentally insulted Madame Leclerc by calling her adorable? No, I wasn't proud. I was terrified. Terrified that my son's marriage would crumble under the weight of my expectations. Terrified that Whitmore & Company would become another cautionary tale of family businesses gone wrong. Daniel tried to smooth things over, of course. Mom, give her time, he pleaded one evening over dinner. She's still learning. Learning? Yes. Learning how to fail spectacularly. But I kept quiet, biding my time. Because deep down I knew something Daniel didn't. Failure teaches lessons success never can. And if Sophia was going to survive in this world, if she was going to earn her place in mine, she needed to learn them sooner rather than later. It started with a phone call. One of our top clients, Victoria Langston, a socialite whose Instagram posts could make or break a collection, wanted an exclusive preview of our upcoming line. Normally I'd handle it myself, but this time I decided to hand the reins to Sophia. Consider it a trial run, I told her, handing her a folder filled with notes and sketches. Victoria expects perfection. Don't disappoint her. Sophia nodded eagerly, her curls bouncing with excitement. Don't worry, Eleanor. I've got this. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But as I watched her leave the office, clutching the folder like a lifeline, doubt gnawed at me. Was I setting her up to succeed, or to fail? The private showcase was held at our showroom, a sleek space adorned with mirrored walls and crystal chandeliers. Everything seemed fine, at first. Sophia greeted Victoria with practiced charm, offering flutes of champagne and compliments about her latest magazine spread. Then came the pitch. This piece, Sophia said, gesturing to a floor-length gown, is crafted from pure, she hesitated, glancing at the tag. Chiffon. Pure chiffon? Pure disaster, more like. Chiffon doesn't drape like that. It doesn't hold its shape. Anyone with half a brain knows that. Things only got worse when Sophia tripped over a display stand, sending a cascade of red wine onto the very gown she'd been describing. Victoria gasped, her perfectly manicured hand flying to her mouth. I'm so sorry. Sophia stammered, grabbing napkins and blotting furiously. By the end of the evening, Victoria was livid, several other clients were whispering behind their hands, and I was seething. I sat in silence, refusing to intervene, even as Daniel shot me pleading looks from across the room. Let her fail, I told myself. Let her feel what it means to fall short. Back at the office, Sophia burst into tears the moment we stepped inside. "I ruined everything," she wailed, sinking into a chair. "I don't know what happened. I froze. I panicked. You weren't ready," I cut her off, my voice cold and clipped. "And now everyone knows it." Her face crumpled, and for a moment I felt a twinge of guilt. But then Daniel stormed in, his usually calm demeanor replaced by fury. "How could you do that to her?" he demanded, pointing a finger at me. "You set her up to fail. You humiliated her in front of everyone." Humiliated her? Well, reality had humiliated her. I simply refused to shield her from it. Nathaniel Price arrived like a shadow slipping through the cracks. He sent Sophia a handwritten note, inviting her to lunch under the guise of discussing mutual interests. Against my advice, she went. When she returned, her cheeks were flushed, her eyes bright with possibility. "He offered me a partnership," she confided, pacing my office like a caged animal. "A chance to start fresh without all this pressure." Without me, she meant. Without Whitmore and Company. Without me breathing down her neck, judging her every move. "Think carefully before you make your decision," I warned, though my tone betrayed none of the storm brewing inside me. "Some offers come with strings attached." But Sophia didn't listen. How could she? She was too blinded by the promise of redemption to see the trap closing around her. I've always believed that the past has a way of creeping up on you when you least expect it. That's exactly what happened the day Sophia stumbled upon an old filing cabinet in my office. She'd been looking for fabric swatches, something trivial, but instead she found something far more revealing, a dusty folder labeled Early Designs and Mistakes. Curiosity got the better of her, as it often does with people her age. Inside, she discovered sketches from my earliest days at Whitmore and Company, back when I was just a wide-eyed designer trying to prove myself. There were notes scrawled in the margins, reminders to fix uneven hems and rework proportions, along with harsh critiques from buyers who dismissed my work as amateurish. When Sophia confronted me about it later, her voice trembled with disbelief. You made mistakes too?" "Of course I did," I snapped, snatching the folder out of her hands. "Everyone does. The difference is I learned from them. I didn't run off to Nathaniel Price the first time things got hard." Her face flushed, but she didn't back down. "Maybe if you'd given me a chance to really teach me instead of tearing me apart, I wouldn't have felt like I had no other choice." The accusations stung more than I cared to admit. Was she right? Had I pushed her away because I feared seeing too much of myself in her? Or worse, because I couldn't bear the thought of losing control? Sophia began disappearing more frequently after that. At first, I assumed she was meeting with Nathaniel, finalizing whatever deal he'd sweet-talked her into. But then I noticed smaller signs. Late-night emails sent from unfamiliar accounts, hurried phone calls cut short whenever I entered the room. Paranoia gnawed at me, so I did what any self-respecting businesswoman would do. I investigated. It wasn't difficult to track her movements or uncover fragments of her conversations. What I found chilled me to the bone. Nathaniel wasn't just offering her a partnership. He was using her to undermine Whitmore and Company from within. He fed her false promises about creative freedom while secretly gathering intel on our upcoming collections. Worse still, he planted seeds of doubt in her mind, convincing her that I'd never truly accept her as part of the family, or the company. Yet, despite the evidence mounting against her, I hesitated to confront her. Something held me back. A flicker of hope, perhaps, that she'd see through his manipulations before it was too late. Daniel cornered me one evening after work, his expression grim. "What are you doing to her?" he demanded, his voice low but laced with anger. "She's miserable, Mom. She feels like you hate her." "Hate her?" I repeated, incredulous. "I don't hate her. I'm trying to protect her. From herself, from Nathaniel, from ruining everything we've worked for." "You're not protecting her," he shot back. "You're pushing her away. And now she's talking about leaving, not just the business but us. Me." His words hit me like a punch to the gut. Leaving him? No, I hadn't considered that possibility. In my quest to safeguard the legacy I'd built, had I inadvertently driven a wedge between my son and his wife? Before I could respond, Daniel turned and walked out, slamming the door behind him. For the first time in years, I felt utterly powerless. It all came crashing down at the annual fashion industry gala. An event where rivalries simmered beneath glittering chandeliers and champagne flutes. Sophia stood on stage, microphone in hand, her smile radiant yet tinged with defiance. "I want to thank Eleanor Whitmore for giving me the opportunity to grow," she began, her voice steady despite the weight of everyone's eyes on her. "But sometimes, growth means stepping out of your comfort zone and into new opportunities." Gasps rippled through the crowd as she announced her departure from Whitmore and Company, citing creative differences as her reason. She thanked Nathaniel profusely, calling him a visionary who believed in her potential when others doubted her. My heart sank as I watched clients whisper amongst themselves, their loyalty wavering. Some even approached Nathaniel afterward, congratulating him on his latest acquisition. As the room emptied, I remained seated, frozen in place. Daniel found me there hours later, clutching an empty wine glass. "She's gone," I said numbly. "And she took half the company's reputation with her." In the days following the gala, I threw myself into damage control. I called every client personally, apologizing for the chaos and assuring them that Whitmore and Company would continue to deliver excellence. To my surprise, many stayed loyal, praising my resilience and commitment to quality. But loyalty only goes so far. Sales plummeted, partnerships faltered, and whispers of bankruptcy began circulating. Nathaniel wasted no time capitalizing on our misfortune, launching a PR campaign that positioned his brand as the fresh, innovative alternative to Whitmore and Company's outdated traditions. Meanwhile, Sophia seemed untouchable, basking in her newfound success. Yet something about her demeanor struck me as off. Her smiles didn't quite reach her eyes, and her laughter carried a brittle edge. Perhaps she wasn't as content as she appeared. One rainy afternoon, Sophia showed up unannounced at my office, drenched and visibly shaken. Without waiting for an invitation, she collapsed onto the couch, tears streaming down her face. "He lied to me," she choked out. "Everything he promised, it was a lie. He used me, manipulated me, and now he's cutting me out entirely." At first I wanted to gloat, to tell her she deserved this for betraying me. But as I looked at her, broken, vulnerable, and desperate, I couldn't bring myself to say it. Instead, I listened as she recounted how Nathaniel had stolen her ideas, erased her contributions, and left her with nothing but empty promises. By the time she finished, my anger had shifted, not toward her but toward Nathaniel. This wasn't just about business anymore. It was personal. "I'll do whatever it takes to fix this," Sophia vowed, her voice steadying with determination. "Please, Eleanor. Let me help you take him down." For a moment I considered refusing. After everything she'd done, why should I trust her again? But then I remembered my own early struggles. The sleepless nights, the crushing failures, the moments when I thought I'd never recover. If anyone understood the pain of being used and discarded, it was me. "Fine," I said finally. "But don't expect forgiveness overnight. Actions speak louder than words." Her relief was palpable, though tempered by the enormity of the task ahead. Together, we devised a plan to expose Nathaniel's deceit, starting with tracking down the stolen designs and leaked contracts that proved his treachery. Just as we began gaining traction, disaster struck. A cyber attack compromised our servers, leaking confidential designs online and halting production indefinitely. Suspicion immediately fell on Sophia, with employees muttering accusations under their breath. Even Daniel questioned her involvement. "How do we know she's not working with him again?" he asked during a tense dinner. "I don't," I admitted. "But I'm willing to take the risk." An anonymous tip led us to a disgruntled former employee of Nathaniel's, who revealed his role in the cyber attack. Armed with irrefutable evidence, Sophia and I prepared for the ultimate confrontation. At a press conference hosted by Nathaniel himself, Sophia stepped forward, presenting damning proof of his schemes. His empire crumbled instantly, leaving him disgraced and humiliated. Yet as the dust settled, lingering doubts about Sophia's loyalty remained. Could I truly trust her again? The aftermath of Nathaniel's downfall was a whirlwind of media attention and industry speculation. While the public celebrated our victory, internally Whitmore and Company remained fragile. Clients were hesitant to fully commit, employees whispered behind closed doors, and I couldn't shake the feeling that Sophia's presence still cast a shadow over the brand. Every morning I'd arrive at the office to find her already there, buried in paperwork or reviewing designs with a focus that bordered on obsessive. She worked tirelessly, often skipping meals and staying late into the night. It was as if she was trying to erase her past mistakes stitch by stitch, email by email. One evening, as we sat alone in the dimly lit showroom, she finally broke the silence. "Do you think I'll ever earn your trust back?" Her voice was soft, almost childlike, and it caught me off guard. I hesitated before answering. "Trust isn't given, Sophia." Turned. "And you're doing everything right so far." Her shoulders relaxed slightly, but the sadness in her eyes lingered. For the first time I saw not just the ambitious young woman who had walked into my life, but someone who had been broken, and was fighting to rebuild herself. Daniel noticed the change in both of us. Over dinner one night he remarked, "You two are actually starting to act like a team. What happened to the war zone?" Sophia laughed nervously while I raised an eyebrow. "We realized the enemy wasn't each other," I said pointedly. "It was Nathaniel and ourselves." That admission felt strange coming out of my mouth. Admitting fault has never been easy for me, especially when it comes to matters of pride. But watching Sophia grow, not just as a businesswoman but as a person, forced me to confront my own flaws. Had I been too harsh? Too quick to judge? Daniel smiled, clearly relieved. "Maybe you're finally learning how to share the spotlight, Mom." I shot him a glare, but secretly I knew he was right. As weeks turned into months, Sophia began proposing bold ideas for revitalizing Whitmore and Company. One stood out: a capsule collection aimed at younger audiences, blending timeless elegance with modern trends. It was risky. Our traditional clientele might balk at such a departure, but Sophia argued passionately for its potential. "Fashion evolves," she said during a board meeting. "If we don't evolve with it, we'll fade into obscurity." Her words echoed my own philosophy from decades ago when I first started the company. Back then I faced skepticism too, but I refused to compromise my vision. Now, as I watched Sophia defend hers, I felt a pang of nostalgia and pride. Against my better judgment, I approved the project. The launch event for the capsule collection took place in a converted warehouse downtown, a stark contrast to our usual Fifth Avenue extravaganzas. Young influencers mingled with longtime clients, sipping cocktails and snapping photos of models strutting down the runway in pieces that embodied both innovation and heritage. When the final look appeared, a sleek jumpsuit adorned with intricate embroidery, I stepped onto the stage alongside Sophia. The applause was thunderous, a mix of cheers and whistles that reverberated through the space. "This wouldn't have been possible without Sophia Loren," I announced, my voice carrying over the crowd. She reminded me that fashion isn't just about preserving the past, it's about creating the future. Sophia looked at me, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. For the first time, I didn't see her as Daniel's wife or my reluctant protégé. I saw her as family. Later that night, after the champagne bottles had been emptied and the guests dispersed, Sophia and I found ourselves alone in the empty venue. She handed me a glass of wine, her expression thoughtful. "You know," she said, "when I first met you, I thought you were impossible to please. Cold even. And now?" I asked, raising an eyebrow. "Now I understand why you are the way you are. You built this empire from nothing, Eleanor. That takes strength and sacrifice." Her words struck a chord deep within me. Strength and sacrifice. Two things I'd always prided myself on, yet rarely acknowledged aloud. "Thank you," I said quietly, "for reminding me that even empires need foundations." She smiled, and for the first time it reached her eyes. On the eve of the collection's nationwide rollout, Sophia handed me a letter during breakfast. "This came for you yesterday," she said, her tone cryptic. Inside the envelope was a handwritten note dated years earlier, the year before she married Daniel. It was addressed to a prestigious fashion school in Paris, recommending Sophia for enrollment. The signature at the bottom read, "Eleanor Whitmore." My breath hitched as realization dawned. Did you know about this?" She nodded, her cheeks flushing. "I found it last week while cleaning out some old files." "Why didn't you tell me?" "I wanted you to succeed on your own terms," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "Not because of me." Tears welled up in her eyes as she hugged me tightly. "You've always believed in me more than I deserved." The capsule collection became a runaway success, earning rave reviews and catapulting Whitmore and Company back into the spotlight. Reporters hailed Sophia as a visionary, crediting her with breathing new life into the brand. At a celebratory dinner, surrounded by friends, family, and colleagues, Sophia raised her glass in a toast. To Eleanor Whitmore, she said, her voice steady and sincere. The greatest teacher I never knew I had. The room erupted in applause, but all I could focus on was the warmth in her gaze. In that moment, I knew the legacy I'd fought so hard to protect was safe. Not because of me but because of her. Months later, I made the decision to step down as CEO, passing the torch to Sophia. It wasn't easy, letting go never is. But as I watched her take charge with confidence and grace, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in years. On a quiet afternoon, I visited the original boutique where Whitmore and Company began, a tiny storefront tucked away in Soho. As I stood outside watching Sophia greet customers and admire the latest designs, I allowed myself a rare smile. The girl who once stumbled over fabric names had grown into a woman capable of carrying the weight of an empire. And perhaps in teaching her to fly, I'd finally learned to let go.